Ladies and gentlemen, may I have your attention, please? I am Sergeant Aspinall of the 3rd Infantry Regiment, United States Army. Guard of Honor, Tomb of the Unknown Soldier. The ceremony that you are about to witness is the changing of the guard. In keeping with the dignity of this ceremony, it is requested that everyone remain silent and standing. Thank you.
There is no ceremony, civilian, military, or otherwise, that is done with more respect or precision or discipline than that. It is just absolutely flawless in every way. Such an impressive ceremony to watch. If you're ever in DC, coming to Arlington, Tomb of the Unknown Soldier is a must. We're gonna spend a little bit more time here at Arlington and kind of focus specifically on some of the graves here from guys that were in World War II. Now there's a bunch, we're not going to be able to hit all of them, but there's a few that I definitely want to see before I leave. And the one that we're starting with is a good one. Right here, Audie Murphy, the most highly decorated soldier in U.S. military history. Medal of Honor, Distinguished Service Cross, Silver Star with Oak Leaf Cluster, Bronze Star, Purple Heart with 2 Oak Leaf Clusters, Legion of Merit. This guy was something else. Wrote a book called To Hell and Back. But if you don't know anything about Audie Murphy, look him up. He is something else. Holy smokes, now this one's cool. Omar Nelson Bradley, native of Missouri, and really my favorite general from World War II. I know everybody always defaults to Patton, but the GI General, Omar Bradley, was my favorite. Served under Patton in Africa and Sicily, and then was his superior in Europe. This guy was very, very instrumental in the U.S. and the Allies winning the war. Very, very cool to see his grave. Hey, now this is cool. This is the grave of George C. Marshall, who was the Army Chief of Staff during World War II under FDR and Truman. So basically he oversaw all of the Allied operations, for the military anyway, in Europe and the Pacific. So he was over Eisenhower, MacArthur, all of them. He was at the top. Later on, he served as Secretary of State for Truman and organized the Marshall Plan, which was the plan to rebuild Europe after it was devastated during World War II. Very cool. Now, this was a complete accident, but here also is the grave of Beetle Smith. Beetle Smith isn't very well known, unless you're just a complete World War II nerd like me, but he was the Chief of Staff for Eisenhower, and his grave is right behind Marshall's. That's how I found it. I was looking at Marshall's grave, looked here, and I was like, oh my gosh, there's Beetle Smith. So, right here together. Glenn Miller, famous big band leader. If you've never heard Moonlight Serenade, you need to look that up and listen to it. He joined the U.S. Army Air Corps in World War II. And here's what's interesting about this grave, is at this particular grave, there is nothing underneath me except more dirt and earth, because he's not there. He boarded a plane on December 15th, 1944, and it went down somewhere over the English Channel. Nobody knows what happened to it. There's speculation, but his daughter wanted to have a marker erected here at Arlington, though, in his memory. But he's not there. He is buried somewhere in the English Channel. One thing that I've noticed is that people, whenever they come to Arlington, they'll do the typical Arlington things, like go to the Tomb of the Unknown Soldier and the grave of JFK, which is great. I think everybody should do that. I've done it. But I've noticed that nobody seems to kind of get off of the typical tourist paths. And you have to get out in to the cemetery. As you can see, I'm pretty much by myself out here. But you have to get out here in order to see and appreciate graves like this one. This is the grave of Medal of Honor recipient John Basilone. And his story is pretty incredible. If you don't know the story of John Basilone, his story is simply amazing. During the Battle of Guadalcanal, he pretty much held off an entire regiment of attacking Japanese soldiers. A regiment, that's about 3,000 people. Him and it got down to about 2 other guys. Ended up getting the Medal of Honor, sent him back to the States for a while, and then he ended up going back to Iwo Jima and was killed there and was awarded the Navy Cross. Pretty amazing to be here at his grave. We are actually going to leave a penny here to show that we were here to pay our respects. Incredible, incredible guy. I was just walking away from the grave of John Basilone and happened to see another Medal of Honor recipient, that of William Walsh. I am unfamiliar with this guy, so I'm going to have to look him up. I see that he died February 27th, 1945, and he was in the Marines, so that would put him in the right timeline for Iwo Jima. But, yeah, I'll have to check that one out. Here is another veteran of World War II, Joe Louis Barrow. But you probably know him better from his time as a boxer. This is the grave of Joe Louis, the Brown Bomber, one of the best heavyweight boxers of all time. You can see that there have been some people leaving stones and coins to show that they visited this particular grave. And this is the final resting place of Ira Hayes. If you've ever heard the Johnny Cash song, The Ballad of Ira Hayes, it's about one of the flag raisers of Iwo Jima who was Native American and really had a tragic life after the war, dealt with a lot of alcoholism, post-traumatic stress. But this is one that I really, really wanted to see. Ira Hayes. Well, that was Arlington National Cemetery, or at least a piece of it. Incredible place. No other cemetery, I would venture to say, on this planet has as many connections to as many historical figures as what this place does. So, as we've mentioned before, we like cemeteries. Cemeteries connect us to the past, connect us to historical events. I even found some things here today that I'm going to be looking up and learning some more. But places like this also remind us that every one of us has an expiration date. It doesn't last forever. So it's a reminder to live your life well, live it with eternity in mind. Well, is about all we have for Arlington. Incredible place.
Ladies and gentlemen, may I have your attention for one more moment, please? As of 7 p.m., Arlington National Cemetery is closed to the public, and the tomb of the unknown soldier becomes a restricted military post. Therefore, all visitors must exit the cemetery at this time.